Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
November 27th at 7 a.m., Hisashi would suffer 3 heart attacks, and they would not be fatal. The team would actually resuscitate him 3 times, and shortly after this, his liver and his kidneys would start shutting down. His kidneys would completely start shutting down, and in a blood work, the physicians would find out that his liver would follow suit. They would go and attach Hisashi to all these machines, and they would eventually, test these theories out to see if he could maintain a heartbeat or any kind of functionality. Sorry, words. But unfortunately, it wouldn't be a success. They would lower the machines, and as soon as they would, his blood pressure and his heart rate would just bottom down, and they would have to shoot it back up. After these heart attacks, Hisashi's heartbeat would go from 120 beats a minute to 164. And with his organs failing and everything, you would think this would be the worst, but it wasn't. Nurses and physicians said it's at this point that Hisashi had no kind of responses. He was unresponsive for the rest of the duration of his life. I like to think that it's because he had so much brain damage that at that point he couldn't feel anything, because within those 3 heart attacks, he spent about 49 minutes with no oxygen to the brain. So I would like to think that this is officially where Hisashi's pain and suffering had stopped. And the nurses would say that every now and again he would show slight movements, but it was just involuntary body movements, or that's how they described it, because it wasn't like he had movements or anything. It was just more like body twitches or nerve twitches. So I'd like to think that this is where Hisashi's pain officially stopped. It's also after the heart attacks that the lead physician would inform the family, and the family would respond with, his heart stopped, but it did start up. He will get better. And that's probably what's even more painful, was that the family was so hopeful that he would get better, but I think that's probably what broke the physician's heart more than anything. On December 1st, 1999, 63 days after exposure, they would run into another problem, and this is where the very, very limited supply of immune system that Hisashi had would begin attacking his blood. And they would have to start giving him plasma transfusions. They would have to give him around 79 plasma transfusions. And after that, his body would go into complete shock. And it is really unfortunate that his body was just giving out. And I think this is probably where the lead physician had realized that they had to do the humane thing, and they had to give Hisashi his rest. On December 19th, 1999, at 11:30 p.m., 81 days after exposure, the lead physician would walk into the family's room, and he would tell them that he had laid out all of the paperwork they had done, everything they had done since they were treated or given Hisashi to be treated. And he would tell them that they have exhausted every way possible to try to save this man, and that his body was physically shutting down. And at this point, he was completely vegetated and completely ran by machines. And so that the next time his heart stopped, they would make the decision to not resuscitate. The family would listen to what the lead physician had said and would say, "We understand." It's at this point that the family would make preparations to saying goodbye for their loved ones. Physicians wanted to give the family, I guess, a really good, they wanted to do and make it as comfortable and as best for the family as possible. So they would actually take off all the gauze and everything that, he was wrapped in, and they would actually wrap his body in T-Rex gauze so it could show the outline of his face. And the nurses would say that as they took it off, even after everything, he had every scar, every mark that he had received since he had been at the hospital. And it was almost like his whole body was a battle scar. And one nurse would say in an interview that his body was the crystallization of his perseverance. And I don't think anyone could have put it better. On December 20th, they would bring the family in, and everyone would say their goodbyes. This would be day 82 of after exposure. On December 21st, 1999, 83 days after exposure, the medical team would start slowly lowering his drug dosage and slowly shutting off the machines. And at 11:20 p.m., 35 Hisashi Ouchi would pass away. They would quickly inform the family that Hisashi had passed away, and it's there that the wife of Hisashi Ouchi would request to see her husband. Now keep in mind, she had been strong this entire time. She never showed any kind of tear. She never cried. She never showed sign of sadness or wavered, lost hope. She stayed so strong during those 3 months. And it's there that they would lead her into the room where she would see her unalive husband, and it is there where she would finally give in because she did not have to be strong anymore, and she would fall right down to her knees, and she would begin weeping over her husband that she had just lost. They would proceed with funeral processing. They would proceed with funeral processing. Words. They would proceed with the funeral the following day. It said after the funeral, the wife of Hisashi Ouchi would personally walk into the hospital and thank every physician and doctor and nurse that helped try to save her husband. Following the funeral, they would actually do an autopsy of Hisashi Ouchi, and it's there that it would be something remarkable. As they would open up Hisashi Ouchi, they realized that they would find that everything in his insides, organ-wise, had been completely obliterated. The radiation had completely destroyed everything. It said that his intestines were literally swollen up like a balloon, and his liver and kidney was completely decimated, and his muscles, the radiation had actually liquefied his muscles to the point that the only thing left were the muscle fibers. And that would not be the only thing that would be remarkable. Out of all of his organs that were destroyed by the radiation, the only thing that was untouched was his heart. His heart was perfectly fine. His heart had absolutely no damage to it whatsoever. The medical examiner would make a remark that his heart was in that condition solely on the premise for Hisashi's will to live, and I like to think that. The paper cranes that Hisashi's family made while waiting for him are still at the hospital, and you can see them in Japan. There's 10,000 of them in total. They would eventually tear down the Tokomira plant, and 6 years afterwards would retrieve the barrel that the exposure happened to be put in a museum 6 years later after the incident, and it was still radioactive. The barrel can actually be seen in this museum to this day.